Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. We are excited for tonight. We're going to give it a few minutes while everyone joins, and we will kick off shortly. All right, I can see we've got the numbers going up. So we'll give everybody a few more minutes to join. Thanks for joining us today on Breaking Barriers, Day 2 of our 3-day series. We are excited to have you. Give you a quick sneak peek of the agenda, but it was very quick. All righty. We'll give it a few more minutes. Let everybody get settled in. Are you guys still able to see my PowerPoint screen? Yeah, okay. I was playing around with the bar up here and I didn't know if I was messing stuff up. So. All righty. One more minute and then we are good to go. All right, let's get this kicked off. Good evening, everyone. I am Alyssa Mbako. I am the co-chair of Emerging Professionals, as well as She Leads Tech, along with Christina Cruz. Tonight, we kick off the second night of our 3-night series. For those that joined last night, we already are off to a great start, and I know you will enjoy the lineup that we have prepared for tonight. I have the agenda pulled up here. And just to give you a quick recap of what we're going to be going through tonight. First, we will do this piece I'm doing right now, introductions. I'll give a quick membership update. Christine will then give a quick recap of day 1. We'll then get into our keynote speaker, Jill, principal at PwC, who's going to talk to us a little bit about her career journey. Then we will get into cybersecurity case study competition and award winners, as well as the ISACA Student Group Award winners hosted by the Academic Relations Committee. Then we will move into our Breaking Barriers panel discussion moderated by our very own Christina Cruz. And then we will have closing remarks. So this is the full lineup for us tonight. Very excited for you guys to join. And to close out our 3-day event, we actually have a in-person networking mixer tomorrow. We hope that you all can attend. If you haven't already registered, registration is still open till noon tomorrow. It's going to be a great event. It's at a new space. You see the pictures here, it looks very cool. So if you guys can make it, if you're in town, please do register. We'd love to have you. And it's going to be top shelf, so only the best for you guys. Then another exciting event that we have coming up is our ISACA New York Metropolitan Chapter Gala. So that event is scheduled for Thursday, June 16th at 6 p.m. The gala is always a great time. The last 2 years, I believe, we've had to do it virtually. So this year we're back to in person. We're at a new event, City Winery. It's a great event location. You can see there, we've got views for days, and hope you guys can make it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It always is. And I know with this new venue and people not being able to see each other for the last 2 years, we're definitely in store for a fun evening. So registration is open there. Space is limited, so do try to sign up early. And then my last membership update for the evening is if you guys want to have some fun this summer in terms of certification classes and trainings, we've got a bunch that we have lined up. We've got some review classes for exams such as the CISM. We've also got CRISC summer review classes. I also have another plug for the gala here, as you'll see. So a lot in store for us this summer. We've got some great trainers, so definitely try to check those out. Let's see, what else do we have to cover here? So I think for tonight, I'm going to then hand it over to Christine, and she is going to give us a update of the great session that we had yesterday on our Courage to Break Barriers event.
Thanks, Alyssa. Yesterday we had such a great event. We had Erica Mower, who is an executive coach at P-Link, talk to us about two things: the courage to break barriers within us, and also the courage to break barriers amongst us. So that means giving yourself permission to say no, or to say yes, even if that feels scary, or to admit that you may not have all the answers. And then also giving others the same permission by supporting them and sharing your personal stories in their times of need. Lastly, we talked about feedback, and in breakout rooms talked about a past barrier that we overcame and then a current one. We also contemplated the feedback we received and what that may tell us about that person's values or their past experiences and how they see things through their lens. We finished with a quote, which I really liked, and that is, "The most resilient people have the biggest bounce." As Alyssa mentioned, we have an exciting agenda today. Jill Pavlis is our keynote speaker, and she'll be speaking to us about her career journey and her keys to tech success and lessons learned, and how she has become a diversity partner champion for the National Digital Risk Solutions practice and launched and led the Women's Inclusion Network. Welcome, Jill. We are so happy you are speaking with us tonight.
Thank you, Christine. And I'm looking at your background and feeling a little jealous right now. I am joining you all live from Orlando, Florida. I actually spent about 3 hours presenting today on the topic of digital transformation. So I am going to try to hype myself back up to bring a lot of energy to this evening session tonight as well, but apologize in advance for a very boring hotel room backdrop with some pretty crappy lighting. So I did the best I could here to try to bring some light into the session. As Christine mentioned, I am a partner at PwC in what we call our cyber risk and regulatory practice. Us professional services firms, we love our acronyms and stringing together words. And I've actually worked in 16 different named practices in about 18 and a half years at the firm. And I've pretty much done the same thing the entire time. And so again, that gives you an idea of the pace of acronym changes in the professional services industry. But if we can go to the first slide, I thought I'd start with just a little background on how we like to introduce ourselves in an impactful and memorable way at PwC. And so we like to say we're on trend with the hashtags, although that may pass us by tomorrow, so this may be uncool. But just a few things about me. I definitely have a reputation from a brand perspective, both with the firm, with my clients, and with my broader both personal and professional network for getting stuff done. And I'll use the stuff word, although it is after hours. That doesn't always, that's not always the word that's used to describe my persona there, but I credit that to being the youngest of 4 daughters and growing up in a very working class economy family in the middle of the cornfields in the Midwest, and having my first job starting at 8 years old, doing chores around the rental properties and learning how to push a mower before I was even trained to play sports and do things, and starting my first business called JP Pavlos Mowing Service, very original, I know, in my early teen years to make a buck in the summers. And so my parents were both educators and taught us both the value of $1 and how to really work hard. And I credit that to my success today in my career. I do a lot with enterprise systems, and in particular SAP. So for those of you out there who know anything about the ERP land, SAP S/4HANA is SAP's latest modernized product in their roadmap, and our client base has until 2027 to get on the latest version of SAP. And I spend a lot of time helping our clients transform their businesses with a focus on governance, risk, and compliance. And I'll talk a little later about how in the world I got into the SAP space, because it's certainly something you don't study for in your younger years to get prepared for. As Christine mentioned, I am what we call a DPC, or a diversity partner champion at the firm as well. And that's an opportunity I got about 6 years ago, and it's been certainly one of the most meaningful pieces of my career journey. And so looking forward to sharing a little bit more about that. I am people obsessed, sometimes almost to a fault, but I think it's such an important part of being a leader, is how you lead others and inspire others and help them to grow and develop. And so that's a big part of my career journey and those who've come before me, and I'm really focused on paying that back. I did go to Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, sticking along the themes of growing up in the cornfields, and got my degree from there in international business and marketing and finance. And I'm a huge Hoosier alum. And so we've certainly had better basketball days, but I'm hopeful for an actual good season this coming year. But I get back there quite a lot. I still do a lot of campus recruiting for the firm there, and get back for a game every fall with my dad, which is great. I am a bit of a travel warrior, and so the COVID environment has certainly been a little tough on me. I've canceled quite a lot of international trips, both personally and professionally. So I'm personally very happy to be getting back on the road again and exploring new cultures and new places. And before Peloton became really cool, and maybe it's uncool now, I actually got a Peloton in 2019 and became pretty obsessed with it. And it certainly helped me through the pandemic. I'm a big advocate of mental health, and I think your physical well-being is a really important part of that. And so I spend a lot of time with the Peloton content, both on the bike and through the app. But I do allow myself the indulgence of wine, and it's a habit I've picked up over the last couple of years and goes along with my international travel. So hopefully just a few nuggets for you all to get to know me better. And as I appreciate, Jason's gonna, pepper some questions throughout, because I thought that 30 minutes of me talking at y'all sounded kind of boring. So I gave him license to just interrupt and ask whatever he wants as we go through this.
And thank you, Jill. And everyone, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit questions, and we'll keep Jill on her toes here. So sounds good.
That's great. All right, well, let's head to the next slide. And this is a little bit of a journey map of just a little bit about my PwC journey. And I'll try to weave in some of the tech components of kind of how I got into the world of SAP and what I do. But I graduated back in 04 from IU. I started very shortly after at PwC. For those of you who appreciate some history, you'll remember that Sarbanes-Oxley was very big in the early 2000s, and there was a lot of work for the Big Four to get done in those days. And so instead of the traditional cushy August and September start dates, we were told you're starting 2 weeks after you graduate, or you're not starting at all. And so I actually had originally accepted an offer to join in our in our Chicago practice. And because of some of our under hiring in certain markets, with a lot of SOX work to get done, I always tell people I landed in Houston, Texas for $1,000, and that was an extra incremental signing bonus that we got to transfer our offers to one of 4 cities in the U.S. And we had to sign a 12-month commitment to that particular office, and then we could return to our home office if we wanted. And my career just really bloomed in Houston, and so I ended up spending the first 16 years of my career in Houston, and I'll get back to where I've landed now from there. But my second day at the firm on June 7th of 2004, that was my first interaction with the SAP technology. And how I learned about that, my senior at the time sat me down in an office at a client site and logged me into the SAP GUI and said, here's a manual, right? I need you to figure out how to pull all this data out of the system. Then I need you to make sense of this data. And then I need you to tell me what you figured out in this data. And that was it. And there was a whole bunch of table relations in this manual of like German translations and the software of what I was supposed to do. And he was asking me to basically pull journal entry data and look for anomalies. And that was all kind of, I had remembered some of my accounting classes. And so I kind of knew what that was. And, but I certainly didn't have any SAP schooling at Indiana, right? I had the couple intro to MIS classes and knew what an ERP was, but beyond that, and he left. And to this day, this is an individual who's been a huge mentor and advocate in my career, but he left the office and he went somewhere else, and he just left me there for 8 hours. And I was like, oh, shoot, like, did I make a mistake? Like, what am I doing? So I started reading the manual. I started writing down questions. The search engine thing was just kind of starting back then, so you couldn't really find a lot on the web. And I screwed everything up in my first day. That's the easiest way to talk about it. He came back towards the end of the day and was like, how did it go? And I'm like, I don't think I got done what I needed to get done. You told me to log into these 7 systems and get this data, and it's not formatted right. And it was just a disaster. I had a bad day, and I was like, I don't want to do this job. I remember calling my parents that night thinking I was a total failure. And he's like, I just want you to come back tomorrow, right? Like, I just want you to come back tomorrow and give it another go. So came back tomorrow, he provided more detailed instructions, and I crushed it. And from that moment on, I realized that I was really good at this thing called SAP. And so I downloaded the sandbox on my computer and I played around and I configured things. And when I changed the configuration, I figured out how business transactions flowed differently. And then when you configured things a certain way, I figured out like what a true automated control was and how that stopped a transaction and how that could actually help our clients embed better compliance. And I just got really into it, right? And it was really just that first interaction of really, we can do anything, right? And I think that that's so relevant in today's environment where the pace of technology change, has never been more rapid. And it's impossible to stay current on everything unless you really dig in. So that was my first interaction with SAP. I'd be remiss to attend an ISACA event if I didn't plug a certification. And so I became CISA certified in 2007. I actually took my test back in 2004, but as you know, you needed some prior work experience. And so I wasn't able to actually get the license until February of 2007. And then we started this kind of global content team at PwC to drive consistency in how we delivered both our SAP assurance and consulting services to our clients. So whether we were helping our clients implement SAP or whether we were helping them build better controls around it or audit SAP, we knew we needed a better way to get information into our practitioners' hands, help train and develop our practitioners, and develop a common methodology and taxonomy that we could take to market. And so because I had gotten pretty darn good with SAP, I was asked to join this global task force. And that task force actually really kind of whet my appetite for global travel, because over the next 10 or so years, I went to 20 different territories in the firm, learning people, learning cultures, understanding how to drive a true global methodology. And it's something I'm still involved with in the firm today. And it was a lot of those networks that really made me indebted to my career at PwC and my progression and some of that. And so that was a really neat experience that I got. And again, I was offered that opportunity because I was passionate in an area and I got good at something, right? And then I was asked by the firm, hey, can you help spread that, right, across our global network? And so that was super fun. In 2010, oh, go ahead.
Can
Yeah,
I ask you a quick question?
on.
Yeah, it's
Please.
just me. I have a question. So I'm just curious, when you came into PwC, did you start in like the IT side or did you start in the finance side? Or was it like not divided up like that?
Yeah, so I started in a group, Alyssa, I gotta think back that far, to a group that we called Global Risk Management Solutions, or GRIMS. What a terrible acronym. And that was basically our controls audit and consulting practice. And so we both helped our clients with their SOX readiness and compliance, and then we did the SOX attest work for all of our external audit clients. And so that was both in the same practice at the time. So we needed to learn SOX, we needed to learn accounting, and we needed to learn all these darn systems that our clients had to build all these controls around, right, for compliance purposes.
Okay, cool. No, I was just, because when I started at PwC, I started in something that was called SPA, which was a little bit of a cooler name.
Came after GRIM.
Okay.
That came after GRIM.
Okay, cool. Just wondering, because they love the acronyms. I was just wondering because I saw you had like a background in finance and marketing and international business, which is a little bit different than kind of what we would typically see.
And that is so true, Alyssa. And I will tell you, I would not have been hired under normal PwC protocols back then. In fact, I didn't even get an interview with PwC through the Career Services Office because I didn't have an accounting, or at IU, it was called a tech management degree. It was kind of the precursor to MIS. And so I wasn't an available candidate. Now, lucky for me, I had a sister who worked at the firm who was very good at her job, and a partner who said to her, if your sister is half as good as you, we'd be an idiot not to hire her, and we can teach her what she needs to know. And that is how I got in at the firm. Now today, it's been great because we've really relaxed our majors of focus. And right, we're looking for a best athlete off of campus and through our experienced hire program. And we feel like through both on the job and the technical training curriculum we give, like we can teach you how to fish at the end of the day. But I was certainly a very early experiment of that.
Awesome. Awesome.
No, it's great. So then, like all professional services firms, we continued to evolve ourselves, and we got really good at this ERP stuff and said, hey, we should do this at more than just our audit clients, right? All of our consulting clients should get access to all these really strong ERP risk and compliance services that we're doing. So we launched a new group to do that. They asked me to be a part of it. I was one of the original 30 in that group that has over 350 people in it today. And it's been fun to kind of be on the ground floor of something like that and watch it really grow and blossom over the years. That's been a rewarding part of my journey. In April of 2013, I took a sabbatical. And so again, kind of before sabbaticals were a cool thing, we were experimenting with this concept of a milestone sabbatical at PwC, where once you got to director, you got an extra month off of time to do something that was meaningful to you. And so I bought a house, I traveled to visit friends and family. I got to spend some time with my new nephew out in Denver. And that was a really pivotal point in my career because I was really thinking about leaving the firm. You kind of get to a point in professional services where you make a decision of, am I going to stick it out for the partner track, or am I going to take one of these really nice offers from my clients going forward? And that sabbatical was a really meaningful disconnect for me. And I probably spent more than 5 weeks prepping to take the darn sabbatical, but I actually turned my email off on my phone for the first time in my career. And it was such a rewarding and disconnected 5 weeks. And as I think back on that, was really pivotal to my decision to come back and decide to make a run at the partner track. Which happened a few years later. And so I'm just finishing my 6th year in the partnership at PwC. I was admitted in the summer of 2016, and we're about a week away from our new admission class this year, which is always a really rewarding and meaningful day as a PwC partner to help others celebrate. A couple other things I highlighted on here. The Grace Hopper Conference is something that's really special to me. The C actually stands for celebration, not conference, but it's the world's largest gathering of female technologists. And it's something that PwC has been a sponsor at for really since the conference's inception, and it's grown astronomically over the years. But again, kind of tying my passion for people and recruiting and women in tech, that's a really nice way for me to memorialize that annually. And it's great because we're going to be back in person this fall for the first time in a couple of years for that too. And so that's definitely a way, one, that I stay current on tech trends, because there's a lot of great content at that conference, but also a really great way we build our recruiting pipeline as well. Another thing I know we called out was my DPC, or my diversity partner champion role. And so I took that over shortly after I made partner. And that has been a super rewarding role for me. I think until you put yourself in positions of discomfort or in uncomfortable situations, you don't really grow. And candidly, I mean, I grew up in the farms of the central Illinois flatlands, and everybody around looked like me. The demographic of the small town Byron, Illinois, where I grew up at the time, was 100% white. And there wasn't a lot of religious diversity, and there certainly wasn't a lot of ethnic diversity. And we weren't having the tough and candid conversations around social injustice and other current events and geopolitical risks and everything that our world is grappling with today. And taking on that role at the firm really just dove me headfirst into that, and has brought a level of kind of inclusiveness and empathy to my leadership style that candidly I didn't know was missing. until I took that role on, right? And so it's something that I still proudly do and put time and effort into, and helping to roll out ways that all of us can drive more inclusiveness in our behavior.
And Jill, can
Yeah,
I
go ahead,
interrupt you
Jason.
here? So you've
Please.
been on a roll. I mean, this is really impressive. So how did you get invited into that opportunity to become a diversity partner? Or how did that originally come up?
Yeah, so each of our practices, kind of starting back in that 2016, 2017 time, PwC made some pretty public commitments, Jason, around things we were going to do both externally as well as commitments we were going to make to the market around actually starting to publish our DE&I data and statistics, right? And so that kind of was some of the bleeding edge and beginning of companies' ESG commitments, which of course is, right, a very hot topic today. And so with that came a little bit of like an internal oh crap moment of, well, we just made all these really public commitments. Like now we got to put, people, processes, and technology in place to execute on them internally. And the first step to that was kind of the evolution of this diversity partner champion role that was going to be focused on driving inclusive leadership behaviors in the practice, being focused on things like parity and utilization and the experience that we're giving our underrepresented minorities as they join the firm and deploy to our engagements, and how we coach and mentor our people. And so again, it was interesting to kind of be on the ground floor. But again, candidly, basically, if you were a non-white male at the time, you were looked at as a candidate to be a diversity partner champion. Now, again, our vision of that has evolved significantly, over the last 6 years as I've done this role. But there weren't a lot of people who looked like me in a technology practice back then, right? And then when you saw, oh my gosh, like 500 hours a year, like how am I going to find 500 hours a year to do something? The list got whittled pretty quickly. And I'd like to think I was hand selected for it, Jason. But I know better than that. To me, a role is what you make of it. And I'm proud of what I made of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jill. And
Yeah.
we did have another question come in.
Oh,
I'll
sure.
just backtrack. But what was most helpful for you in building your technical knowledge? So it seems like it was a trial by fire experience that you had there on your first few days. But did that just kind of waken something within you that just kind of sparked an interest, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure I really knew what I signed up for at the firm. Again, I kind of happened into the firm. Side story, the other job that I had accepted, which probably surprises no one with my background in majors, was I was going to go be a drug rep for Eli Lilly in Chicago with the corporate car and the $68,000 starting salary, which was way more than PwC paid me back then. I was all locked and loaded for that until this partner who my sister worked for reached out one day and was like, hey, like if you're half as good as your sister, right? Like you're someone that we want at the firm. And I was like, great sales pitch. But that's how I just kind of landed at PwC. So when I started, I was overwhelmed and I knew that I didn't have the technical aptitude that my peers did to be digging into all of these technologies and figuring out all the IT controls around them and how the business processes flowed against them. And so I did so much self-study in my first year, right? Like if I was working 50 or 60 hours a week, I was studying for another 20 hours a week. I read SAP books. I went to a whole bunch of ISACA sessions in my market in my first couple of years, just trying to get smarter and learn the technology. Candidly, studying for the CISA was really helpful to me to just learn some core concepts and things. And again, getting in the SAP example, getting that sandbox on my computer, and I still log into the SAP sandbox today, and that blows people's minds as a partner in the firm, but I'm still current on the latest configuration and what's happening in there. And if somebody calls with a question, I say 1 second and I log in and kind of figure out the transaction patterns and behaviors. So for me, like just getting in the weeds and learning it firsthand has been most helpful. And then I supplement that, like I said, I go to the Grace Hopper celebration and I sit in some of the sessions. I'm an avid reader. And so I read books, I listen to podcasts, I read the journal every morning. I just try to pick up trends and words that can help me have more meaningful conversations with both our people and our clients.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice, just being hands-on and just being interested and, realizing that we all have access to a lot of these resources, already. And it's just a matter of, kind of diving in and figuring it out on your own. So that's great advice. Thank you, Jill. So.
Yeah, no problem. Well, we're almost through the journey. We'll see what comes here. But I actually started a new job in January of 2020, which many of you will think, yes, wow, that was 60 days before the pandemic. But I had committed to move to the Pacific Northwest with my firm to take on a market team leader role. And that was going to be kind of my first foray into quote unquote leadership at PwC. And obviously having that role through the pandemic has been a really, both interesting experience as well as one that's taught me a lot as we've evolved through remote work and now hybrid work, as we've evolved in how we serve our clients and how we build relationships with one another and our clients. On top of that, we went through a huge reorganization, like a lot of corporate America did as well throughout that time. And so again, I did actually move. Funny story, I was supposed to move on May 1st of 2020, and the firm rescheduled it to August 1st because we were absolutely reopening after Labor Day in 2020. So yep, the moving truck showed up, we loaded them up, we got out to Seattle, and the firm didn't reopen for another 18 months. But we're back and we're at it now. And so that's been an interesting piece of my journey. A good example of things don't always go as you plan, but trying to make the best of them. In March of 22, I had the pleasure to work with this team and got featured as the wit of the quarter, which I'm pretty sure is what landed me this speaking gig. And so that was fun. I was nominated by one of our team members at PwC, Lakeisha Gunter. And so it's been fun to support this chapter and get engaged. And then I actually just started another new role at the firm. So again, with reorganizations comes new opportunities. And so I now lead the West and Mid Central practice at PwC for yet another acronym, but something we call DAT, or our Digital Assurance and Transparency practice. And so I just started that job on April 1st. It's actually one of the reasons I'm down in Orlando this week with my new team, getting geared up to head into the new fiscal year. We're a 6/30 year end here. And with that, I'll likely move back to my my hometown of the greater Chicago region and area. Hopefully once the market settles down a little bit, we don't need to be in any big rush to get back there. So that will be exciting. And then who knows where we go from here. Hopefully some of these, kind of pit stops show you that life and career and work and personal and everything in between is really what you make of it. And I loved Christine's quote and reference from yesterday. I'm a big quote person as well, and I love this one. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. And I do. I firmly believe that we create our own opportunities. And so with that, I have a couple tips, but I think the next slide will just be good for Q&A, and we can leave it up as some more questions come in of, what do I kind of owe my success and my tech credit to? And I think I've touched on a few of these as we've gone through, but I don't know, Jason, if any other questions have come through or anything you want to pepper in here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had some good ones come in, and please continue to send in the questions using the button at the bottom of your screen. But we have a good one here. It's, what has been your most difficult conversation in your career?
About 5 days after I got to Seattle, I had the really hard job of firing a partner. And that partner was about 15 years my senior, had been a partner for about 12 years longer than I, so certainly had quite a lot of tenure. And hadn't really done anything egregiously wrong, just wasn't performing at the level of his peers on a consistent year-over-year basis. And the easiest way to think about it was deferred maintenance that my predecessor didn't want to tackle. And so we have a really nice executive coaching relationship at PwC, and it sounds like y'all had an executive coach yesterday, which is awesome. I'm a huge advocate of any time you can spend. But I actually have an executive coach that I spend time with every 2 weeks at the firm, and just such a critical part of both my professional and my personal life. And I role played for hours for that conversation, and I'll never forget it. We got through the first couple of rounds, and my executive coach's name is Patrick, and he said to me, Jill, you're saying all the right words, but your expression and your tone don't convey seriousness. And hopefully I'll see I've got a lot of energy and excitement. And what he was basically saying is I needed to channel that in the moment. I needed to tailor my approach for the seriousness and gravity of the conversation. Like this was somebody's lifeblood, right? And so super helpful perspective. And I use it as an example in a lot of discussions. And I'll tell you what, like that was such a productive conversation. I helped that individual plan a really meaningful retirement experience. We're close today. He still references that conversation as, right, a really transparent conversation that gave him what he needed to get the closure with the firm. And so made a really tough situation something that became productive and kind of part of my network.
Wow, that's really incredible. I'm glad you shared that with us. So thank you. And we have another question that came in here. You touched on this already, but how has being a diversity partner impacted your career? So it seems like it was really helpful from a leadership perspective, some ways that you didn't even realize, but would you like to elaborate any further on that?
Yeah, honestly, I would say that my diversity IQ, I probably would have self-assessed myself much higher than it actually was as I got into the role. Even simple things like when we say URM, right? What does that mean and what does that really make up? And again, at PwC, we use that definition, underrepresented minorities, to represent our Black and African American, Hispanic, Latino, and Latina populations, right? But again, we just kind of assume people know things like that, right? And again, until you get into a role where you're parsing data and trying to make sure we're giving equitable experiences to our people, it doesn't really cross your mind as, right, kind of like part of your business blueprint and DNA. I think also just the relationships that I've been able to build, again, we all operate with a lot of similarity bias, right? We build teams and networks and communities, generally speaking, of people who have shared lived experiences with us. And again, I grew up in a very predominantly white culture and went to a predominantly white school. And so until I got into the professional sense, I didn't really have any perspective of racial or ethnic diversity and the beauty that comes together when you think about that. I also wrongfully thought, like many, that gender and race were the only diversity demographics, right? Until I took that role. And there are 14 internationally recognized diversity demographics, and we try to think about all of them as we build and structure our teams. And so maybe just some examples, Jason, of how I feel like I see the world through a much different perspective. And as I talk to my fellow partners, I feel like I'm upskilling them. We've even talked so much about how we should have curriculum in our partnership. I always tell people my job will be done when we don't need diversity partner champions, because we're all one, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really powerful. And is there any advice that you'd give to others on the call today that might want to start an affinity group within their organization? It seems like PwC has been very supportive of this role, but any other advice you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think one, define your mission. Like, what are you trying to do, right? And by that, I mean, don't just start a women's inclusion network or a Black inclusion network because like it's the right thing to do, or you want to bring the women together, right? Or you want to, bring the Black population in your practice together. So think about like the why behind it, right? And basically build a mission or a purpose statement associated with it, and then go find an ally, right? You don't need 10,000 signatures, right? Go find one really great ally, right? And for me, it was a partner by the name of Richard Clark in Houston who became my career ally. And I took ideas to him, right? And he helped me to edit those ideas for impact. But then he helped connect me to his network to get things done. So how inclusion networks start and grow and expand at PwC is you need a partner sponsor. You need a partner sponsor to go to bat for you. It's like that in many organizations, right? But don't just go and have the conversation, take something to the conversation, right? Like my favorite part of being a diversity partner champion is all the conversations I get to have with our people about their lived experiences and their ideas that they have for how we improve the inclusivity of our workplace. That's how I build my plan. So bring an idea, find an ally.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jill. Really appreciate you sharing your career with us. And Alyssa, anything you wanted to add as well?
Yeah, I did have a question. I know that you mentioned mentorship, right? And that you having a lot of mentors kind of throughout your career. So I think something that people often struggle with is finding that mentorship. I know at PwC that you kind of have like a designated like mentor partner, and then you also have like a coach or like something like that. But how have you kind of gone about finding mentors like throughout your career? And has it made an impact on you? And do you often do you have a lot of mentors outside of like PwC where you would have kind of different relationships than somebody actually in the firm?
Yeah. Let me take those backwards because that's kind of how my brain works. But so yes, I actually I have several either current or past clients who I've really been inspired by over the years, and I've simply like bought them a cup of coffee and said, your perspectives and input are really helpful to me. Could we do this on an ongoing basis, right? And rarely does that morph into like business speak or talk. But I will tell you, as a person in professional services, it helps to build meaningful relationships as well. But I've gotten so much value, and I've gotten connected to kind of conference circuits and speaking engagements and other things like as a result of those relationships. I also think as someone who has spent my entire career at one firm, it's so important to get outside information, right? I don't have any lived experience in industry, right? I need to go seek that. So I think that that's really important. The how, right, can get challenging, but I would encourage you to be bold, right? Like certainly you have at least one strong relationship in your organization, right? So how can you use that relationship to maybe get connected to someone in their network, right? I'll also use the LinkedIn tip, right? And I know there's like a mixed bag about LinkedIn, but I still think it's a very successful professional networking platform. And I'll give you an example. On actually the Wit of the Quarter posts, an individual in the Seattle business community commented on my post, mentioned kind of a shared connection that we had, and asked if I would be interested in catching up. And we caught up for a cup of coffee a couple of weeks ago in Seattle and found so much more in common than different, which is often the case when you choose to invest some time in a relationship. And honestly, like, I was pretty proud of that individual for basically kind of making a memorable cold call reach out. And again, it happened off of this ISACA Wit of the Quarter post. So again, not underestimating the importance of tools and networking like LinkedIn as well.
No, I think that's great advice. I know like I've used or I've spoken to people and asked them like that their perspective would be valuable to me. And I think that's a really good way to link up with somebody. And then also kind of checking in and offering what you can do to help that person too, like making it a
Yeah.
two-way kind of relationship, not that you're just like asking for advice all the time, right? Like kind of giving back as well.
Look, I think that's so important. Like people often say to me like, oh my gosh, what can I do to help? Or I'm so grateful that, you've spent the time, and I simply say like, pay it forward. Like what I did for you, please go do for 2 other people, right? Because that's how we, sustain and grow and progress. And people did it for me, right? And so making sure that you're maintaining time in your schedule to do that, I think is so important.
Awesome. All right.
Excellent. Well, this
Anything else on
concludes
your end?
Yeah, I was just going to say this concludes the Q&A portion, and just wanted to thank you, Jill, for sharing your career with us. And it really seems like this is just the beginning for you. So we'll be eager to hear from you again in the future. And would you recommend that folks reach out to you on LinkedIn as well?
Oh yeah, feel free. Shoot me a LinkedIn connect. That would be great. I can't wait to stop talking and listen to this amazing panel. So my schedule changed around a little bit, Alyssa, so I can stay on. So I can't wait to learn something from these 4 amazing women on the panel too.
Awesome. Jill, was there anything else you wanted to cover on this slide? Are you good? Do you think we kind of captured it?
No, I'm good. I think we covered a lot. That first one really resonates, and hopefully after you heard my story, you get why we're all starting at different points in the race, right? And it can get really exhausting to compare yourself to others, right? Like remember, you're running your own race. That's how I live.
For sure. I've got one more question to ask you, just because I'm very curious.
Yeah.
The weather, what do you like better? The weather in Houston or the weather in Seattle? Because it's very different.
Not the weather in Orlando, I'll tell you that. I actually quickly had to straighten my hair again before getting on camera with you all, because it was this big from the humidity down here. Look, I love the lower humidity and lower temperature point in Seattle, but I am a sunshine person, and there is just simply not enough sunshine in the Pacific Northwest for Jill Pavlis. So, we will have to see, but man, that humidity in Houston, you get out of that environment and you don't realize how brutal it is until you escape it. So we'll see.
For sure. I've been to both cities and both have good food, but I think I might, even though Houston is very hot, I think I'm with you on that sunshine. So
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Jill. Appreciate all your time and advice. It was great. All right. And thank you, Jason. Appreciate all your help on the Q&A. So with that, I will switch it over to Eugene.
Thank you, Alyssa. Hi, everybody. My name is Eugene Levin. I'm currently the corresponding secretary for New York Metropolitan Chapter. I also have the role of the co-chair of academic relations. And I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about the student cybersecurity case study competition that we have been organizing for the last 3 years. So this year we had 15 teams. Let me share my screen. We had 15 teams that entered the competition, and from 10 different institutions. For about 7 weeks in February and March, these teams have been analyzing this really interesting case study that Barry Dinkin and I have selected for the students. So we purchased this case study from Harvard Business Publishing, and it's really big and it's really interesting. It talks about this online voting company called PopVote that was the victim of the politically motivated denial of service attack. This case study basically looks at the evolution of the IT infrastructure of this company, and we asked students to look at the attacks that this company was the victim of on 2 occasions, and what kind of lessons learned can they learn from these, and what kind of recommendations would they make to the management of this company. So teams have done a terrific job, and we are so proud of them. And it's really my my privilege to announce the winners of this competition, and I'm going to show the names of these people. And if you're looking for future employees or interns, I couldn't recommend these people higher. Couldn't give them a better reference. So the first team, the team that took the first place is the team of 3 Yeshiva University students and the student from Brooklyn Tech High School. And if you're interested about the presentation they made, the condition of the competition was that presentation can be at most 13 minutes. So if you're curious, take a look at the presentation. You will be very pleasantly surprised at the depth of the analysis. And all of the students in their first place team will be getting $1,600 scholarships from the chapter. Second team, the Watchdogs, is the team from Baruch College. They will be getting $1,400 each. And the third team was from the Pace University. They'll be getting $1,200. So this year we'll be giving out almost $21,000 in scholarships to talented students, very capable students, which is better than last year. Last year we gave out about, I believe, $17,000. Obviously, that creates very good publicity for the chapter, and the students tell their friends about the competition that they won, and it generates very good feedback and very good publicity. So the next academic awards, the award that I would like to give out is called Outstanding Academic Advisor. And it is my privilege to announce the winner of this award, and that is Professor Tehila. Professor Tehila is a true partner of New York Metropolitan Chapter. She is the program director for Masters in Cybersecurity at Yeshiva University. She had a 10-year, she started her career at the Israel Defense Forces Intelligence Community, and she had a very accomplished career in cybersecurity. For the last few years, she was focusing on promoting women in cybersecurity. She created a club called Cyber Ladies New York City, right? So in addition to Yeshiva University, Professor Tehila also created a club at Manhattan High School for girls. And actually this year we had 2 teams competing in the competition. And last year we had 1 team competing in the competition. So it's again, I'm very happy to give out this award this year to Professor Tehila. And with that, I'm going to pass to Chair of Academic Relations Committee, Ashley Menger, who is going to introduce the other awards.
Ashley, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, apologies for that. So hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Mangar, and I am the chair for the Academic Relations Committee. And it is it is a very, very wonderful time for me to announce the outstanding student contributor. That is the student, our particular student in the ISACA student group that actually put in a lot of thought and communicated very well with the ISACA New York Metropolitan Chapter, especially with me and Eugene, and hosted a very interesting and phenomenal event. And we would like to award that to Kevin Sukil from Yeshiva University. So congratulations, Kevin. Well deserved on especially creating from scratch the Capture the Flag event in February, and also working with the other ISACA student groups to make this event successful. Last but not least, I would like to award one more give out one more award for the outstanding student group for 2022, and that's no more than the Baruch College Cybersecurity Club. Baruch College Cybersecurity Club happens to be one of the best students groups that we had worked with for this year, who attended to not only all of our ISACA meetings and activities, but they went above and beyond their responsibilities by working with the other ISACA student groups who just started out with ISACA and giving them advice and telling them how they should, what kind of events they should do, how to market their events, how to attract students, and even down to creating events with the other ISACA student groups to make a one big, huge event. So congratulations to Baruch College and to Kevin. And that is all from the Academic Relations Committee.
So with that, I
Um,
believe we are going to go to Christina, who will continue our event. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Eugene. And good evening, everyone. We're so happy that you can join us tonight. I think this is one of the best events we've held this year at the ISACA New York Metropolitan Chapter. The fact that we have an all-star cast of women at this event tonight, the fact that we just awarded the future of the workforce with fabulous scholarships and prizes is really exciting. So with that being said, I am Christina Cruz. I am the chair of the membership committee at the ISACA New York Metropolitan Chapter. I work alongside all of the committee chairs that you saw tonight to bring value to our members by bringing on events and training and certification and networking experiences and opportunities. And as you can see, we are heavily invested in our emerging professionals and our women in technology and bringing them to the forefront in all the causes that we care about today. With that being said, I have a phenomenal panel discussion tonight. So if we can have everyone turn their cameras on. I was going through my notes tonight, and I think we have over 100 years of experience on this panel alone.
I may have most myself.
So we have a lot to talk
No,
about
I think
tonight.
it's you
Closest
and
to the
me,
100 mark.
Teresa.
So with that being said, I think it'd be great if we just go around, you introduce yourself, your role at your employer, and a little bit about you, starting with Teresa.
All right. See, courage. I get to go first. I'm Teresa DeRocher. I'm the head of risk for the corporate security and resilience group at Citizens Bank. I've been here for almost 7 years now. Before that, I was 10 years with Fidelity in a number of positions. I have an Army background. I spent 10 years in the Army when I first came out of college. And I had one of those meandering journeys into cybersecurity that seems to be the pattern for most folks these days. But I'm thrilled to be here and be part of the panel. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Teresa, and welcome. I have one of those meandering journeys as well to cyber. Next, if we can have Michelle, introduce yourself.
Good evening, everybody. And Teresa, thank you for your service. And Christina and ISACA, thank you for bringing us all together. I am with Kezia Shahinian and John Tomasi. Please don't try to say it. CSG will suffice. I lead up our cybersecurity and privacy practice, but I also share that role internally with our CIO and our incident response team, put together policies and procedures. And I hate saying I told you so.
Good to know. Anu, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. So Anu Wariku, I am at JP Morgan Chase. I work in the second line now. Responsible for a variety of executive reporting, first line oversight of governance, risk appetite. It's just sort of like a hodgepodge of responsibilities that are sort of cross team and cross domain. I have worked in first line for most of my career and also have worked at an investment bank, a hedge fund, and an exchange, and now back at a bank. Actually started my career in insurance. So I've worked in a variety of financial services companies, mostly always in technology. And my career sort of went from being a practicing technologist to a risk professional. I'm really glad to be here. I'm very excited to be at the Emerging Professionals event. I would love to. I think we get a lot of energy from emerging professionals, so I'm really happy to be here and be part of this panel.
Thank you, Anu. We're happy to have you here tonight. And last but certainly not least, Dominique.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dominique Sellers. I'm actually 2 weeks in at Paramount, leading their strategy around sustainable sourcing and supplier diversity. Prior to that, I spent 13 years at PwC. So in Jill's group that she just spoke about, and I kind of was at that crossroads she also just spoke about in transitioning. I was able to kind of do quite a range of things. I was able to do the risk side of things from a consulting perspective, working directly with some CAEs, as well as doing the kind of standard internal and external audit on the IT side, as well as leading some of our cybersecurity champion work as well. So really looking forward to this panel. Got to meet the ladies during practice. So hopefully this will be very interesting for you all and helpful.
Great, awesome. All right, so I'm itching to get ready and start chatting. So last night we talked about the courage to break barriers, and the phenomenal Erica Moore from P-Link Leadership kind of led a discussion about the various biases that we all face as part of our journey in our professional and personal lives. And she spoke a lot about courage. So we're gonna start the conversation about courage. And we wanna talk a little bit about, do you find that having courage is something that has served you well in your career? And if so, how you develop this courage? Because most people, when you talk to them about courage, it's what does that really look like, right? And trying to kind of articulating what courage means is very different for different people. So I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on this and their experiences. So we're gonna actually start with Teresa.
That's what I said, courage
your
first.
Perspectives.
And I think, one of the first questions about, does it take courage to work in this environment? And I would say, for most people, it takes courage just to do something every day, honestly. I mean, when I think about working in general, it takes courage to go to the interview. It takes courage to take the job and show up the first day to a new team that you don't know, that doesn't know you and has no experience with you. I mean, when you think about the things you've done as your career grows, the first time you have to make a presentation, and sometimes every time you make a presentation after that, it takes courage. It doesn't sometimes get easier. You just make yourself do it more, right? Sometimes leading people, you put in a manager position, you've never led people before. And that takes courage to make those decisions and help people and feel like what you're doing makes a difference to them. And so for me, I would say that a lot of the courage for me is really kind of based in two things. I mean, certainly the Army, for me, from a physical standpoint, I will say that working up physical courage for me also carries over into everything else that I do. So making myself do something, physically, I went to airborne school, I jumped out of airplanes. Let me just say, I hated every second of it. My children want me to go, skydiving with them. It's not happening. But making myself do it when I really didn't want to reminds me every time I step into a room or have to talk to folks or go do something really hard that, you live through those things. You can make yourself do it. So I think part of it is just making yourself do it. And the other part, I would go to the people side. And Jill touched a little bit about mentors and people who support you, knowing that you have somebody behind you that is, or that you can reach out to, or friends, family, people at the workplace. You're going to fail. Occasionally things are not going to go your way. And knowing there's people that are going to take you back no matter what makes you turn around and go out and do it again the next day. So for me, those are really, courage. That's what it looks like, I guess, in my life.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm glad you touched on the fact about physical courage, right? It's physical, it could be mental courage. So I love the fact that you touched on, right? What does physical courage look like? And you provided examples in your own life on what that looks like. Dominique, what do you think? What does courage look like? How does it show up for you?
Yeah, I think courage is key, especially being a diverse woman in this industry, right? Reality is, though we've made a lot of progress, it's still primarily a male-dominated industry. And so I think having the courage to not be mansplained or overspoken is still, I would say, a daily thing that I try to overcome, speaking up, maybe even when I don't necessarily want to make sure some of the unconscious bias in the room automatically changes. I've definitely changed some views of individuals just by speaking my mind when I didn't necessarily want to. So I think getting comfortable being uncomfortable, which we hear a lot in terms of having courage, is very important if you really want to get into the leadership roles in organizations and make sure that you're heard, because someone else will always try to make sure it's not necessarily the case. So I think it's truly crucial to success in your career and kind of breaking some of the barriers that women kind of inherently have.
And I guess with that being said, do you have a tip for those who are just starting out in their career, right out of college or a couple of years in, on how to speak their mind? Because I think back to when I started my career, right? I came out of college and really had no knowledge of what the corporate world looked like, how to act, what the norms are there. And for some, that is a frightening experience. So any tips you can share for those who are just starting in their career on what is, how, speaking your mind, and how can you do that in a way that's comfortable for them?
Yeah, I actually would have like 3 things that I did very early in my career that were crucial. I think one was doing research on whatever the topic is before a meeting. So most people just come in cold. I used to research as much as possible, Google people's names of who's going to be actually in the room to maybe start a conversation. It's the small things, especially early in your career, that people are usually surprised and very impressed by. I think the other thing that has been crucial too is just making sure that when you're also in the room and making sure you're prepared, just kind of going above and beyond to not only do the research, but also make sure you have kind of the mentorship factor that Teresa started to talk about, to say, okay, based on the room here or the company here and the culture here, what is the best way to approach the situation? So I think it's totally fine to leverage a resource in order to be able to have that conversation, or when they might say, here's a good time for you not to talk, right? Because based on this culture, it probably won't actually go over well. So I think those are 2 of the things that kind of very early in your career, you can just kind of inherently do, between the research aspect of it to build credibility. And then secondly, just asking for advice from those who have kind of dealt with that type of room before.
Right. Yeah, those are great tips for our audience, and hopefully they either use them or share them with someone. Michelle, what do you think? What does courage look like? How have you developed it?
Courage looks like every woman on this panel. It looks like Jill. It looks like people who might surprise you. To me, courage is knowing that you might fail, but still going forward anyway, and taking that chance. And that chance could be for your own success. It might be for the success of somebody else. But you have to have the courage to take chances. And I'm not suggesting take foolish chances. No disrespect, Teresa. I am not going to jump out of an airplane. It's not going to happen.
Me neither.
But know where you want to get to and have a path forward. Take those chances. But by the way, think about the circuitous route that Jill shared with us. Your path may not be what you envisioned on day one. When I first started practicing law, I won't say how many years ago, but I'm part of that 100 years of experience. There was no such thing as a practice in cybersecurity and privacy. It didn't exist. I was a corporate attorney. Then I was practicing in Japan. Talk about the talking dog. I was a woman in a totally male-dominated culture, and I was being asked to pour tea and beer at events,
Right.
notwithstanding the fact that I was an attorney. And you need to know when to speak up, when not to speak up, and to whom to speak up. all of these things go into succeeding as well as having the courage to persevere.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm sure when you were asked to serve beer or tea, not only did they just tell you to do that, they didn't have you weigh in on what kind of beer and tea would be best to be served and enjoyed by yourself and others. Anu, yeah.
So
Anu, let's hear
hard to go on from that challenge. So yes, that I've heard that story from quite a few colleagues who had to work in Japan in the 90s even. So courage for me, there's a lot of anecdotes in my career that I could allude to, but I want to use one example that this might resonate with a lot of folks starting out. I'm by nature a very chatty, gregarious person. So, as a child, my report card would say Anu's a chatterbox. But when it came to corporate life, I don't think I spoke up as much. And I didn't really realize that I was not speaking as much as I should be. And when I was up for my first promotion, my manager, who was like a really great mentor also to me, and I'll talk more about that when we talk about mentoring. She said to me, you have a sense of humor, you have a good mind, but nobody knows about this. You go about, just being like this serious automaton who's just like getting shit done. But like nobody knows about your intellect. And what I want you to do is, we're going to pick this one meeting at which there are a lot of senior people. It happens every week. And I want you to speak and say something in the first 15 minutes of this weekly meeting every week. And I was like, what if I don't have anything like smart to say? It's like, no, you will think of something, but you will speak in the first 15 minutes. And I totally to this day remember like my heart pounding before I said, okay, I'm going to say something, 14 minutes, got to say something. And it really became like second nature. And it was, I realized that what was holding me back would be, I would be constantly saying, this is not really an interesting question. And I'm sure other people will, think that this is like not a very smart thing to ask. But I realized that I did have good questions, and it led the conversation into very interesting areas. So courage is, somebody sometimes has to point out to you that, this is where you need to show courage or have some courage to do something and learn to do something that may not be feeling very natural to you at that time.
Yeah. And I guess with that being said, kudos to the person who, gave you the push and said, listen, I'm going to give you a platform to speak because I value what you have to say. I'm supportive of you. And that takes courage, right? For you to offer that to someone else that you are either working with or reports to you, et cetera. So I think that's fabulous that kudos to the person who did that for you.
That I am still in touch with that person, and I'll talk more about that person when we talk about mentoring. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that being said, we'll change gears a little bit, but we talked a little bit about our careers and our backgrounds and the fact that we acknowledge that women have had some strides in the workplace in male-dominated fields, but there's a lot more to do, right? And a lot more to accomplish. And I love the fact that we acknowledge that right up front and center in this conversation. We didn't shy away from that. But with that being said, it'd be great to hear kind of how you've seen the role of women in leadership change over the years in your career. And then if you've seen areas where you think there's more progress to be made, it'd be great to hear from you on that, or where you have acknowledged that, this is an area where I've seen, I want to recognize the good that we've seen over the years too. So I will start the question with Michelle, because going back to your story on, you come in and the first thing is, can you serve us beer and tea? I'd love to hear kind of from there what you saw happen.
Well, practicing in Japan, as a woman and as a professional, I was the talking dog. That's simple. And what was very interesting is, first of all, they'd never had a woman foreign associate working for the firm before. And this was back in the late 80s, early 90s. They never had a woman working through pregnancy before, and my son was born in Tokyo. And they never had somebody who said they wanted to come back after giving birth. And to this firm's credit, they allowed me to write the script. But I will tell you, the only reason that they allowed me to write the script is because I demonstrated my ability. I demonstrated my commitment. If I had done neither of those things, that opportunity and that door would not have been open. That said, what was very interesting is at my farewell party, and we lived in Tokyo for 2 years. And when I left the firm, they threw a lovely party for me, invited my husband, they invited our then baby, and everybody came. And a woman came up to me and she said to me, "I want to thank you." I had no idea who the woman was. And it's a small law firm. And I said to her, "I don't mean to be rude, but who are you and why are you thanking me?" And she said, "I was here as a secretary 10 years ago. And I left and decided to go to law school, and I'm coming back as a working mother. And they're letting me come back as a working mother and working part-time because of you." And it was so gratifying to know that I had paved that road for her. But that said, coming back to the United States and coming back into private practice in the US, what I saw time and again were women older than me, and I am turning 60 this year, who had to make choices. Absolutely, I own my age. Made choices either to have a career or have a family and felt they couldn't have both. And what they did was they weren't reaching down to people younger than them who wanted to now have both. And so women were being younger women's worst enemies in some cases, which to me, I thought was, it's bad enough that we're dealing with the men. We shouldn't have to be dealing with women not supporting us. And I remember one young associate had come to me and she said, "I'm really upset." And I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Well, I just had lunch with this woman who I thought could be a terrific mentor for me. And she took one look at me and said, 'Oh, you're just too cute. You have to get rid of these suits and you have to get different earrings and you have to basically remake yourself to look like a cookie cutter female attorney wearing one of those obnoxious bows and black or blue suits.'" And I said to her, "Clearly you have the wrong mentor. And we need to talk about this." And again, in terms of evolution in any industry, technology, legal, or otherwise, we need to be our best advocates. And we need to speak up not only for ourselves, but for the women who are coming after us. And in the technology world, there's no question that there's been progress. But, and I think I shared with you all during our practice session, my daughter, who's now actually earning a PhD, had been a software engineer at Amazon. And at the time, she was fresh out of college, very biased, but my daughter is absolutely adorable. And she looked young for her age. She shows up at orientation with 200 other people. And of course, 2 cute guys wearing alligator shirts or whatever the current prep shirts were started to chat her up. And I'm sure they were hoping to get her out on a date and said, "So are you in marketing?" And she looks at them and says, "No, I'm a software engineer. What do you do?" She said the 2 guys were like, "Oh, we need to break these assumptions. We need to make it clear that no matter what it is, whether we're software engineers, whether we're household engineers, we have worked hard for the positions that we are in today and where we're going to be. And we need to be our best advocates. This fight is not over. And we need to continue to speak up for ourselves and for the women behind us."
Absolutely. I totally 100% back that. Teresa, I am dying to hear. I mean, you've Army, private industry,
Yeah.
varied
And-
experiences.
And I think if I just focus specifically on technology and Michelle, like you said, we talked a little bit about this when we ran through a little bit of the rehearsal. I've definitely seen a change in technology in terms of the women involvement there. However, it's not anywhere. I mean, it is still, I'll say minuscule sounds very small, but it's pretty minuscule. And a lot of times if you walk into a technology all hands, most of the women who are there are the project managers they're the governance and reporting, they are in the technology world, but they're not the technologists. And sometimes a lot of these women have a engineering or development background, and it's hard to tell whether or not they then chose to move into these other roles, or they were sort of moved into those other roles. And part of me has to wonder if some of it has to do with still there being, and I, I come also from a security background, that there does tend to be that sort of club mentality of the security and the technology, and you can come in and be one of the guys. But I think we're at the point where we don't want to dress in the customs, in the suit with the bow and, and join the boys club. I want to, I was in the Army with long blonde hair and all. It didn't mean I was a terrible Army officer. It meant I like my long blonde hair. I like my family. And same here in the technology world. We don't want to have to be one of the boys to be in the technology world, to be in the security world. We want to be us in the technology world. And so we tend to then kind of migrate into those roles where we feel like we can be, not one of the boys, but still in the technology group. So, we have made a lot of progress, but I feel like there's still this break, this barrier that we're having trouble getting across, because I think we've had people leap across and then go, oh no, and leap back over. And, I'm not sure that's helpful either. So I don't have the answers. I'm observing what I'm seeing around me. And we certainly have wonderful, female engineers, just not nearly enough. And a lot of them, kind of migrate into those more supporting roles. So.
Yeah, I'm curious, do you have any tips for those who want to be an advocate for women and just don't know where to start?
I do. I was at a conference, and it was a security conference, and there was all these conversations in the little breakout rooms about how to have more diversity and and you go out to the break, and the men are standing around in little groups talking to each other. And here's the women over here, because they're sort of usually in a one or two, and finally eventually merge together. And all I kept thinking was, if we really want to break that, all this man would have had to do is turn around and say, hey, Teresa, come over here and let me introduce you to these guys. I'm in.
Right.
But the chances of me, stepping in and going, hey, Dan, I think I saw you in that meeting over there. You want to introduce me to your friends?
Right.
You need somebody to reach out that hand and bring you into those so that you are invited in. I mean, and I think, maybe I'm just, I still like to be invited. I don't want to have to, we're breaking barriers, but I'd prefer it to be, welcomed.
Right. No, I think that's a great tip, and costs nothing to do. Right. It's simply just extending,
right.
Hey, this is my, this is so-and-so, happy to.
And we have to do it too. And we have to do it too. So if we're
Exactly.
standing around talking if we're part of the in crowd of the guys or whatever, or the mixed guys and girls, and we see somebody over there, doesn't matter if we need to look for the individual, whether or not it's, whatever reason they're feeling outside, and do that same thing and invite them and come over here and let me introduce you.
Right.
That makes such a difference.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Dominique.
I think we've hit on kind of like the big points. I would say, yes, we've definitely made progress, right? We couldn't have even had this panel a certain amount of years ago, let's be honest, right? So definitely progress has been made. I don't want to not acknowledge that, but I think we have far to go, right? I think that's why even when we look at some of the diversity numbers, even my new role focused on supplier diversity and thinking about having a certain level of women on boards, in general, from a leadership perspective, there's quite far to go. And I think we now are starting to have numbers to support that there's far to go, and to help some of these initiatives to make sure that there is some true progress and accountability in the space. So hopefully that will happen going forward. I'm optimistic about it, or I wouldn't stay in the space. And I think everyone, on this panel and just in the organization, right, can help drive that, even through small efforts, like Teresa just noted, of like, oh, I met so-and-so, let me introduce you as well. And I think that's kind of how we keep passing it forward.
Right. I have a dream, and my dream is when I go to a company's website and I scroll to the leadership tab, that tab looks like this panel tonight. That's my dream.
All right.
Hopefully, slowly but surely, we get there. So moving to another topic, which Jill covered during her session as well, is mentorship. It's an area where we find a lot of emerging professionals asking about how do I get a mentor? What does it mean to be a mentor? What's the difference between a mentor and a coach, right? So with that being said, love to hear how important is it a mentor in your career? And if you can have specific examples of how that's helped you along the years. And great to know, male, female, in your journey and how you found them. But any other tips that you can give to the audience would be great, because like I said, we have a number of emerging professionals that you just saw that, we awarded scholarships to students at Yeshiva University in Baruch, which is phenomenal. And I think, hearing those kind of things will kind of help them think about some things as they move on in their career journey. So Anu, I'm starting with you on this one.
All right. So I have to say that for my first, so I've only had 2 promotions in my career. I worked for very flat organizations. And the first promotion was more based on delivery and getting things done, right? And for that, my manager at the time, who I talked about before, really acted as my mentor. So I never really realized until at that point that she was actually an exceptional manager who was also a mentor. But to get to the next level, which was the director level, I was realizing that, there was something, I was doing something or not doing something that was expected to get to that director level. And I just had like this epiphany one time. I was at a family event, and I was talking to this woman who was a partner at EY, and she was I think one of the youngest person to become partner at Ernst & Young. This was also back in the 90s, I guess, or the early 2000s. And I spoke to her and I said, can I get some career advice from you? And she's like, sure. And I set up time with her. And this tip that she gave me really resonated with like my style of, work. And she said, make a spreadsheet. Spreadsheet is the rows are the people that you're talking to. The columns are why you are talking to them. Like, what is your relationship with them? And then, even just put in like a column, like, what is the activity you did with them? Did you email them? Did you have coffee with them? Did you just have a meeting with them? And like, keep looking at that spreadsheet and expanding the circle of people that you're talking to, whether it's in your company, whether it's outside your company. Make sure the number of people that you're talking to are very diverse. They certainly should not be all women. They certainly should not be all senior to you. They certainly should not be all in your company. So just make sure you have a mix of people who are junior to you, who are peers to you, who are senior to you, who have had other life experiences. And keep talking to different people and learning from them what made them successful or what makes them interesting. Even if it's not, you're not looking just for tips of how to be successful, you're just looking for tips on like how to work with a lot of different people. And you'll be able to use that experience of talking to all these people and learning about all these people and how they operate to bring back. And what you need for your next level promotion is the ability to demonstrate your influencing skills. And you're not going to learn your influencing skills by just doing your job and like being in your little circle. You have to be outside of that circle. And that very active tip really helped me sort of think and sort of just completely change the way I came into work and spend time at work doing whatever I was doing at work. Because I was like, oh, I need to do this spreadsheet. So I need to build time for the spreadsheet. And I need to build time for all these interactions. And that was a very sort of game-changing thing for me. And this person proved to be a great mentor, and she continues to be a great mentor to me.
Yeah, I love a spreadsheet. And I think that was a fabulous tip. And I think what's great about doing that too is powers of influence in an organization sometimes is not hierarchical. And taking that time to do that exercise perhaps would reveal who really has the influence and the power in the organization. And sometimes you'd be surprised as to who it is in your organization. So I think that is an awesome tip. I actually want to do a little quick poll because you touched on something that I think is really interesting and maybe our audience would be interested in knowing. How many of us have asked for a promotion in our career? Raise your hand. So 1, 2, Anu.
I'm trying to figure out how to raise my hand. Oh, you
Okay.
mean actually raise my hand? Okay.
Is
Yes.
it virtual or?
I was like, are we doing this through the, yes, I think every promotion I've got, I've had to ask for it, not once, more than once. So yes.
The 3 out of 5, interesting. How hard or easy was it to get the promotion? Thumbs up, easy, thumbs down, hard. Very interesting. So. Yeah, I think that's interesting to share with the audience because I think when you talk to a lot of women, it's interesting how they go about promotion, right? And whether or not it's something that they just received during their career journey or it's something that they've asked for. And how do you deal with the rejection of you're not getting the promotion? And that's a whole nother topic we could go down. But to go back to mentorship, Dominique, if you want to jump in and talk about your journey with mentorship and what you've seen, or any other comments that you might have that what you just heard.
Yeah, I think mentorship has been crucial to every part of my career, starting from my internship. I actually got the opportunity to shadow a partner at my previous organization, and that kind of developed a mentorship. We are still family as of today, and he gives me very transparent advice, even with my move that recently happened. He's been quite supportive. I think the thing that's important to distinguish, which you started out in the beginning, is the difference between like coaching, mentorship, and what I wanted to focus on is actually allyship. So I think the thing that was most crucial once I got into more senior roles in my career was having what we call an ally, which I think that differs from mentorship. Is mentors or you might have advice for, they might, kind of give you both personal and professional advice, help you. An ally is someone, whether you're in the room or not, is advocating for you and making sure you get that role that is the next level and really is based on conversations that are happening in rooms that you're not actually a part of. And so that is what has been the most crucial to me. And I think the thing that's most important, since we're specifically kind of talking about barriers and women, is that often that person does not look like you. So usually people go in and they want a mentor that they're comfortable with and usually looks like them, and that's what makes them comfortable. But that most likely, which we all been discussing, is it's usually still somewhat of a male-dominated industry. And so the person in the room who probably needs to advocate for you is probably a male. Right. And so making sure you build that connection and conversation with someone like that, whether it's, you guys are actually having a personal relationship or they're truly telling you what's happening in that room, to make sure you're a positive topic of conversation and they can say the right things that they know everyone wants to hear, is what is super crucial. And so I think since I've gotten into more senior roles, that those people have been the most important, and then have developed into personal relationships because we've gotten to know each other in other ways. But I think the allies have been the most crucial to my success, because they're letting me know about things that I literally would have no visibility to otherwise, or know that I need to work on this one thing that maybe my mentor doesn't know because they haven't even gotten to that level, or they're not even aware of those things. And so I would say that's the most important thing. Find who is the leader in your organization and befriend them, or, try to get support and allyship, like I said, more than mentorship from them, I think is what will be crucial to kind of growing your success and making sure you're comfortable, once again, being uncomfortable and that person possibly not looking like you.
Right. Yeah. And I'm glad you differentiated, differences between mentors and coaches and allies. And who will say your name when you're not in the room is something, right, you want to, as you continue with your career, thinking about and seeking. Michelle, your thoughts?
I was thinking about what Dominique said, and I think what's very important is to understand where you want your mentors and what role you want them to serve for you. So thinking about having somebody who's going to speak up for you when you're not in the room is critical, particularly if you want to get a promotion. Having somebody who will say, you need to speak up while you're in the room, like Anu shared with us, is also, I think, critical. I think it's very important also to make sure that you don't stay with a mentor just because they're assigned to you. There are a number of organizations that I'm involved with where we have formal mentorship programs. So in my firm, we have assigned mentors and mentees. We purposely, for the women, don't have a mentor in the same department so that your mentor is not somebody who you're reporting to and who you're doing work for. In New Jersey Women's Lawyers Association, which I'm also very much involved with, I've chosen to be part of the mentorship program, and I have found several women have sought out me as a mentor through other organizations, legal, through technology organizations, and also part of my practice is construction. Through Professional Women in Construction, I've had people seek me out as a mentor. I think what's most important for those of us on this panel and those who are listening to us who are in our roles is that if you're going to be a mentor, be committed to your mentee. Don't be a little bit of a mentor. Ask the questions, point out constructively where you see issues, and provide guidance and honest feedback. And make sure that your mentor is doing the same for you.
Be a lot of, instead of a little, be a lot of a mentor. Teresa, anything else you want to add?
No, I really think we hit it. I thought that the ally piece was really, really important because, I wasn't one of those who raised my hand. I actually have never asked for a promotion. In fact, once I got out of the military and went to the civilian world, I had no idea people got promoted. And one day my boss called me and he goes, "You got promoted." And I was like, "What? I didn't even know there was anything happening. I didn't know there was a cycle. I didn't know there was just out of the blue." And I've been fortunate that I have had allies who, spoke for me when I wasn't there. And generally, if I applied for a different job that was a promotion. I didn't, in there, it wasn't sort of that. So that I've thought about it a couple of times, but maybe I need more courage. I don't know. That was just ever one of those things that that I think about, doing. But I have been fortunate enough to have allies who would speak for me when I wasn't there, and do that for me. So I thought that was an excellent point. Thanks, Dominique.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this, right? Sharing experiences, and we all have different experiences, and letting the audience see the different perspectives, the different experiences, right? So yeah, so I think we're going to take a couple questions from the audience, but before we do, I'm going to wrap this particular session with what brings you joy right now. So let's start with Anu, and I always want to end positive. What's bringing joy to you right now in your life?
What's bringing joy to me right now is I'm actually really enjoying this team that I'm working with. I've only been with the firm a little less than a year, and I didn't really know or think that I would enjoy working in the second line. And I've realized that this is the best mix of, my personality of being very inquisitive, being very curious, and also just, providing advice unasked for. This is very much is part of the second line's job, is to, just figure out what's going on and provide advice. And I'm like, this is great. I just love my job. So I fell into this job mainly because I liked the people that, were interviewing me. And I was kind of hesitant about, do I want to work in second line? And yeah, that's what I'm really liking about it. So I think the sort of the learning for emerging professionals from that is it really try different things. Every couple of years, I have tried something different in my career. And, sometimes it has not worked out. And you kind of have to do those things to know what you will enjoy, what you will be good at, and what you will not like. And so, yeah, that's what I'm loving right now, working in the second line.
Awesome. Dominique, what's bringing you joy right now?
Honestly, everything. I think the pandemic has been really good for me, just putting things in perspective. I'm blessed, I'm alive, I'm well. I think going back to our original comment just about courage, I've been with PwC my entire life. I love them to death, but it's been great to take a leap and be somewhere completely different and try something different, kind of not knowing where it's going to take me. Everyone's been great and the cultures there have been great. So I would say I've just been kind of, not that I wasn't positive before, but I think it did bring a lot of new perspective the past couple of years in acknowledging just kind of all the blessings surrounding me.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Michelle, what is bringing you joy?
I'm not sure if I can top what Dominique just said. And it's so true that we've all gained a very different perspective about the world and our lives because of the pandemic. And I'm so grateful for my family, for my job. There really is so much to be grateful for in my life. And I realize how fortunate I am. And I am doing something different right now, which is also bringing me joy. And I was a little bit nervous and afraid that I would fail at it, but I had the courage to do it. I'm teaching. I am an adjunct professor at Fordham, surprise, surprise, on cybersecurity and privacy. And I have to say, I'm really enjoying it. It's fun to interact with other professionals who want to advance themselves in this field, and I'm helping them do that. So I'm enjoying myself.
Congratulations. That is amazing. Maybe I need to re-enroll and go for my master's and take your class.
Come on in.
Teresa, what is bringing you joy?
I would have to chime in, but probably always it's my family that brings me joy. And I have 8 children and all of them are now local. My son and daughter-in-law just moved back from Utah. They're expecting a baby. So grandbaby number 4 is on the way. So I just have joy coming out my ears right now. And I'm just, I just get up every day happy.
That is amazing. And I'm so glad that you have all your family now near you, and congratulations as well. So I'll end with what brings me joy right now. Personally, it's seeing my daughter, who's a junior in high school, go after her dreams. It's amazing to see them come to fruition as a parent. So that's bringing me a lot of joy. And then on the professional side, what's bringing me joy is volunteering. I volunteer at ISACA. This is all led by volunteers. We give our time and effort to do, our roles here. And the fact that I get to give this platform to causes that the chapter really cares about brings me a lot of joy. I get to network and meet so many people. I learn from so many people. So it truly gives me joy. And it is an honor and a privilege to have been your moderator for tonight. Hopefully I did some justice. You guys were
fabulous job.
You were awesome.
Great. Thank you for making
that
us
being terrific.
We'll turn it over to Jason for some Q&A from the audience.
Perfect. This has been an amazing discussion. Thank you all. And so we do have a few questions that have come in here. And the first one that I'll ask is what are the recommendations that you'd suggest to help women get into the tech industry? We talked a little bit about, gravitating to certain roles, but is there any recommendations that you suggest? And Anu, I saw you typing an answer, or starting to consider that one. Would you like to start off with thoughts there?
Yeah, I definitely do, because this is one thing that I'm very passionate about. So I have been doing college recruiting for all the companies that I worked for the last 15 years or so. And now I have children who are in college. So my daughter just graduated from Northeastern University last 2 weeks back. And I was at the graduation. So I was kind of looking at the demographics and, her cohort and all that stuff. And I think, and my son goes to a very engineering university, which has only 30% women. It's Rensselaer Polytechnic. So, you know, and I've been looking at this trend my entire career through college recruiting and now like personally as a parent. And I feel like where we have to start is at high school. Like we need to somehow get more girls to go to engineering school and to go to computer science. You know, I went into computer science because I was sort of good at math. According to my family, I was not that great, but it was fine. I was good enough, but I enjoyed it. I was better at math than I was at like biology or whatever. And I had parents who totally encouraged me to do that, right? I have no idea what's stopping more girls from going to sciences and to engineering school, but somehow we have to start at the high school level to get more girls into these engineering programs. Because once they're in the engineering programs, then, you know, I have seen the number of women in technology increase over the years. I've seen senior leaders in technology increase over the years. So very happy, like once you are in, people like, you know, just they get ahead, like the good people go ahead, get ahead. But it's the number of people who are coming in is really not increasing. I feel like the pipeline has not become bigger. So I think that my feeling is need to do something at the high school level.
Thank you, Anu. That makes sense. And you know, the next question here, I'll direct to you, Teresa. You know, obviously everyone on the panel here is a leader in their field and been very successful in their career. But you know, what do you think is the one thing that has helped you, you know, get where you are today?
One thing, wow, that's a tough one. You know, some of it was help. Like when I got out of the military, it was another military person who gave me my first civilian job. So, you know, some of it's just been, you know, been a break, you know, that somebody else gave to me. But, you know, I think courage is probably part of it. You know, I mean, just to keep getting up and going out there and doing it. And it, like I said, some days it's hard to just keep going and you just do it. You just remind yourself you can do it. And when you don't, you go back to the people who love you, get a big hug and go out there and get to do it again. So I guess if I had to pick one, I guess that would be it.
No, thank you, Teresa. And I know you've already covered, you know, a lot in your discussion as well. And Michelle, is there anything you'd like to add to that as well? Like what is, you know, what's the one thing that you'd point to is, you know, really helping you along in your journey?
I'm not sure if there's one thing in particular, but I would have to agree with what Teresa said, whether you want to call it courage, confidence, faith in yourself, whatever label you want to put on it. I really do think that's what has gotten me everywhere in my life, whether it's in my personal life, whether it's in what I choose to do in volunteering, whether I do professionally. I have the confidence and the determination to push forward.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Michelle. And we have another question talking about, you know, if everyone at the presentation could walk away making one change to help others break through barriers, you know, what would that be? And Dominique, I'll you know, direct this one to you if you don't mind. You know, I know you talked a lot about, you know, research and mentorship or some of the points you brought up, but if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Yeah, I think it's probably two things. I think one is what we hit on earlier of just passing things forward, right? So using organizations like ISACA to make an introduction or, you know, introduce someone else that could be important in advancing an individual's career, even if it's through just that introduction, even rather than a formal mentorship, I think is something we can all easily learn from here. And I think the other thing is still kind of going back to what the point I was making on the research of just always coming prepared and coming to the table knowing your stuff, right? I would say I still am very much a person that assumes there's some unconscious bias that may exist in the room. And so I'm representing more than just myself when I'm in the room talking about a topic or being the SME in a certain area. So I think coming to that table to make sure when others that look like you come to the table, there's already an expectation or a loss of expectations on what you're bringing to the table can be very important. And so I do always try to come kind of over prepared and over qualified when I go into meetings, presentations, et cetera, in order to kind of set that standard and make sure kind of going forward, others that come in the room already have a high bar set for them.
Wow, thank you. That's
Awesome.
great advice. Yeah.
Great.
And we had one more come in that I'll ask everyone to chime in if they have any thought here. But do you think in any way that the recent trend to remote work may have a positive impact to breaking the bias? So I know, Michelle, you brought up that new opportunity, with the teaching at Fordham University. But just kind of thinking about remote work in the landscape that we have today, if there might be a positive impact there.
I would hope so. I can't guarantee, I would hope so. And the reason why I say that is because you look at women, and I say women in particular, who have been working from home in the last 2.5, 3 years, working at home with children, and managing school or childcare and still being able to do their job. I will tell you, one of our managing partners has 4 kids at home. I can honestly say I have no frigging clue how she had done her job for the last 2.5 years. The only child in my house besides my husband has 4 legs. And I can deal with both my husband and the 4-legged creature. If people, men, women, black, white, green, yellow, what have you, do not have respect for working mothers at this point in particular, they never will. And if you have especially parents at home, I don't care whether it's men or women, if you're not taking their hats off to them after the last 2.5 years, open your eyes, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Michelle. And we have one more question here. And I know we brought this topic up already, but how can women support other women in their organization? So I know the point was brought up that maybe in a different time, that wasn't always the case. But how can women best support other women?
Oh, sorry, no, go ahead.
So I think one of the things that I have benefited a lot from very strong female leaders who were mentors. And I kind of saw the attitude that Michelle described a little bit in the generation that came before me, because they had it really tough. When I was an associate at my second job, there were only like a handful of managing directors in technology, male or female. So there were very few female managing directors. And the ones who made it, they were really incredibly tough people. They were very smart, but they had to really be very tough to break into that level. So, I forgive them for having the attitude that we had to really almost, sort of transform ourselves in order to get to this level. Like, what are you going to do? But I think some of them took that sort of trial by fire experience and used that to mentor people of my generation and say, okay, you have different challenges, and they would give advice more customized to the environment we were in. Others took more we had a career or personal life choice. That's what we did. So, you need to do the same, or whatever it was. Or we waited till we were directors before we had any children, because God forbid that we went on maternity leave before, we got our promotion. So I think the lesson I took away from that was, if there was a woman in the team, or even in a peer team or something, who appeared to be struggling or challenged in whatever way, I have actually reached out even to people that are not part of my team or have not reached out to me for advice, and just like sort of like talk to people. And people are always receptive. And I think that's what I would like more women to do, is to just go, be friendly to like almost strangers if they look like they could use, a shoulder to lean on, right? It makes you feel good. And I really feel that I'm paying it forward when I do that. So that's would be my hope, that more people just sort of go out of the way to take some time to like talk to people.
Excellent.
Can I just add one thing? And it's probably more a request, because this I don't have. Maybe I don't know that I have the technology skills to necessarily pass on to somebody to bring them up technology wise. But when we see women in technology, for you women in technology who are really good at it, make sure if you see somebody who's like partially technical and kind of on the fence, feed them the technology language so that they have that, they can have that confidence to speak out. Because I do think, we tend to, I've seen a lot of very confident technical women, but when somebody comes in who's wobbling a little, instead of saying, I'm going to feed you this and make you sound good too, to kind of, pave that path, Dominique, it's like, oh my gosh, another one who's not technical. No, prop them up, feed them information, like let's make them all look good, right? So, maybe that would be my request, is if you're one of those who technology just comes naturally, feed it to those who are, working hard to look and sound technical and really make them confident. So.
No, thank you, Teresa and Anu, appreciate it. And Alyssa, over to you. I don't know if you had another question you wanted to add. Yeah.
No, I think first I have to give you guys a round of applause, because this session was probably one of the best sessions that I've been to in a long time. So you guys did an amazing job. We're actually at time, we're a minute over. So if you guys would just give me one more minute, I just want to wrap up. I want to thank all of you, Teresa, Michelle, Dominique, Anu, Christina. You did an amazing job moderating. So thank you so much. Jill, thank you. The presentation was amazing. We appreciate all your guys' time and your openness to share your experiences. It really means a lot. I'd like also to thank everybody on the ISACA team that helped pull this together. Appreciate your guys' efforts. I know it takes time. And I also like to thank our sponsors. So to Protiviti and Beyond Identity, we appreciate you guys sponsoring our events and helping us push these forward. So without further ado, one more plug for our event tomorrow. Some of us from the panel and myself will be there, so we're going to have a good time. If you haven't already signed up, please do so. And with that being said, I hope everybody has a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
And
See you
congrats
tomorrow.
again, yes, to the winners. Congrats.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
All right.
Christina and Alyssa, for making this panel so easy to do. Really appreciate everything you guys did.
Absolutely.
No worries. Thank you guys.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Yes. Thank
It
you
was
guys.
phenomenal. I love it. I hope I see you guys tomorrow night.
You'll see me
Yes.
tomorrow night.
Looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
Take
See you
care.
guys later. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.